Hello, Julie Barkus here. Welcome to Get Connected with Julie and Michael Tasner. How's everybody doing today?
I'm doing well over here.
How are you doing? You're doing good?
Yeah, everything is good here. Everything is good. Beautiful weather.
Yeah.
Sun is out. I mean, it's been a beautiful summer so far.
I agree. It's been a nice warm one. Been getting my daily dose of vitamin D in, which I think is really important these days. But, I'm just thrilled to be here with you and with everybody else. And if you're tuning in, let us know. Say hello. And I hope you've been tuning into not only this show, but all the previous episodes that we did, because there's a lot of gold in them. And the gold doesn't stop with the past episodes that we've done. It's going to continue with this one as well. So let's tell them what we're talking about today, Michael.
Definitely. So we're going to focus today on what do you have to do if you're taking over a center, if you're opening up a new center from scratch. And there's a lot of centers that I know, Julie, you're working with, that I'm working with, that are either getting ready to open. I just talked to one this afternoon. They're opening up in August. So
Nice.
What are those steps? What are the, not just the marketing steps, the staff steps? Are there some things with your story or the vision or the planning or just all of this kind of, I mean, there's a lot of things. We won't be able to tackle every single one of them, but what are kind of some of those golden nuggets, some of those key tips that you want to look at when you are either, again, taking over or opening up a new center?
Yeah, and the cool thing is if you're just opening or taking over a new center, there's so many things that you can do to position yourself right, to do it right from the start. A lot of times I get involved in the transformation process. So we have a lot of people who are in the midst of their business. They've been in it for 10, 20, 30 years. And there's all kinds of things going on that we have to really troubleshoot and backtrack and figure out their plan of action. So I think the cool opportunity is if you're new or if you're taking over, there's a whole opportunity to come in and do things right from the start, which I think is like really exciting. So
I agree.
We might even be able to fill people in on some of the common mistakes people who are very seasoned in childcare programs and the running of it make.
Yeah, and I think especially just with how everything is going on, just everything that's going on today, you're having to pivot a lot more than, like I know a lot of centers I've heard, well, I've been doing it this way. There's a center that we work with, they're out west, and it's like, we've always been full and we've been doing it like this exact way. And there's always been a wait list, and there's not a wait list at this time. And it definitely is requiring to kind of change some things up. And especially if I know a lot of people are also acquiring centers. So there's a lot of people that are, if the time is right for them, Jenna, you've worked with a lot of people, Julie, that are kind of transitioning themselves out. They're like, hey, my time has kind of come and it doesn't support either my family or my energy or my vision anymore. A lot of people are taking over centers, and there's obviously some different strategies and tactics and things like that you want to look for. Just got off the phone with one literally 15 minutes ago that just acquired a center, and
oh, nice.
It's like trying to figure all that stuff out. And it's like, I don't even know where to start. Like, do I try and fix the brand and the reputation? Do I rename it? Do I keep all the staff? How do I see who's good? Like, there's all these things that you can embark on.
Yeah. So, we'd love to, on this show today, to help you take the guesswork out of whatever it is that you're going through. And whether you're new or you're established, I think you're going to get some tremendous value from what Michael and I will be sharing with you today. And, the process of transformation, it could be really, really tricky, because where I get involved, like Michael said, some people are transitioning out, but a lot of people have just lost their passion and they need to get it back. So to me, rejuvenating your passion, the steps that you would take would be the same as if you're new and you're opening those doors and you want to engage a community of followers. And I think right now, the biggest word to keep on the top of your mind is opportunity. There's staff members who are childcare staff who are looking for jobs. There's people who are misplaced, people who are wondering what their next opportunity is. And I think it's an incredible time to really wrap your arms around your ideal dreaming staff and your ideal clients.
Oh, that's a really good point that you just mentioned. And I think we should maybe unpack that one for a minute.
I love when you say unpack.
Yeah. So
went on a vacation and now I'm going to unpack and have a good time.
Yeah, I think it's definitely some time for some vacation. I told my wife yesterday, I'm like, well, I'm going to go somewhere. She's like, where are we going to go? No one that, because we live in New York and I know you're in Illinois. And she's like, well, now all the other states are getting COVID. New York is fine. And like, you could still take a road trip in New York or something. But
Right.
perfect. Yeah, I see, Amanda, I see your question. And that's actually a great question. And I will make sure that we tackle that. That's a great question. So the one that I wanted to unpack, Julie, is when you just said that a lot of centers have to look at getting their passion back. And I think that that's definitely a point to really think about, because with everything that has happened, I think a lot of owners of these childcare centers, you're not just frustrated, but I'm hearing a lot of centers that are just like questioning themselves, like, am I really cut out for this?
Yeah.
And I think that there's a huge difference between, are you cut out for this? And I mean, life/world circumstances that are like 1 in a trillion that are happening.
Yeah.
And then the whole other side of the passion. I think a lot of those things kind of get mixed in. And I'd love to kind of hear your take a little bit about that, Julie. But I definitely am worried that a lot of centers they're going to kind of fold their cards because they're like, I'm just tired, or I don't think I can do this anymore. But it was just a lot of stress kind of in disguise, or they lost their passion a little bit, or they didn't have that core story and the vision for their business and their life to kind of fall back on.
Yeah. And one thing I would be curious about too is, like, where were you at in March? So in your headspace, where were you? Were you already feeling like you were losing your passion? Or when COVID hit and the pandemic, were you just pushed to the brink? And then, it's good to evaluate those things, because then you could say, like, okay, well, I was feeling really great right before the COVID hit. So then how do I get it back? But if you were pushed to the brink, then there might be some other steps that we really want to implement to help you get to that passionate place. But I think a lot of it comes into place with you really thinking about, how good am I taking care of myself? How much am I loving me? Because I know this industry, and I know the leaders in this industry, and I know that we are so good at taking care of everybody else around us. And we forget to take care of ourselves. But then when our cup is empty, it's like there's nothing left for anybody else. And we're stretching, just to keep giving to everybody else. But you've got to take some time to really give to yourself and to fill your cup back up. And that's really what we look at when we look at rejuvenating your passion, is how empty is your cup and how do we fill it up again? And it could be some simple action steps, but you got to get recommitted to loving you first and foremost. And that's really essential.
No, I think it's a great point, because I know that I've been there, where I'm just like, you start questioning things, and really it's your life balance and your energy is out of whack. And I think other things end up presenting themselves and kind of disguising what the real issues are. Like, you might say, oh, I'm just so stressed out and it's got to be my business, but it might be something completely different. And it's definitely a big one, because I've, like you, I've analyzed a lot of the financial stuff of childcare centers, and a lot of these centers, you're just not paying yourselves what you're worth, and you're not carving it out in stone that this is what I want to be making. And as Julie said, you're great at making sure your staff is taken care of and the families, and that's great. But at the end of the day, again, if you're not taking care of you, if you're not coming to your center excited, it's only going to continue to get worse, not just on yourself, but your team is going to feel that. And then it's going to have that trickle effect. And if you're doing a tour that day, they're going to feel that. So you got to get yourself in check and in a good spot.
Yeah, it's absolutely an energy that you project. Oh, where did Michael? There you are.
Sorry. Had a little itch. I'm like, I'll turn my camera off for a second.
I was like, oh, where is he? I got scared. Didn't know how I would carry on without you, Michael. No, but you really, really, really got to check in and ask yourself, when was the last time you did something just for you, whether it's buying flowers, whether it's getting a massage, whether it's whatever. Because the imbalance that I see that happens a lot in childcare programs is when the leaders are so much taking care of everybody. Even their dog comes before they do, and their husband and their own kids, so it's like everybody's in this big line, and it's like you're at the end of it. But then what happens when we're in this imbalance is that we start looking to other people to validate us. And when we don't get the response we want from other people, like, why don't they appreciate what I just did for them? Why don't they, acknowledge like everything I just gave up for them, or all this hard work I did for all of them? Why don't they acknowledge this? We almost start to get resentful. So on top of us not taking care of ourselves, we can build up a lot of resentment for the things that we are doing for other people if we're left out of the equation. So it's really important to schedule yourself in as a priority, to do some self-care, to really think about the things that you're doing and the action that you're taking, because the best action comes from a place of not expecting anything in return except for a successful, happy business or a successful, happy team. That would be fantastic. But a lot of times, like I said, if we're looking to other people to fulfill us or to fill our cup up, it becomes a disappointment often.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
That's great. I think that was a good way to kind of start the show, because I worry that, and obviously with COVID in some states coming back, that a lot of these center owners are just, it's tiring. I mean, I know that I'm tired at many times also, but when I realize that, then I make sure that I'm taking care of myself first, and I'll take the afternoon off. I'll go for a walk. I'll go grab something fun to eat. So make sure you're definitely taking care of yourself. So, so let's pivot and switch gears a little bit to looking at, do we want to tackle first if you're taking over a center, or do we want to tackle if you were opening one from scratch? Kind of combine both? Which angle would you like to go?
Ooh, I'm getting the thing I'm getting is let's do it from scratch.
Perfect.
And if anybody's tuning in and you have questions, feel free to shoot those through. Michael is monitoring those for us. So we'd love to really help you out during this show as well.
So Amanda, I'll make sure shortly when we talk about kind of adding on a center to yours or acquiring one, kind of what we can look at doing. So I guess, Julie, let's start from the beginning of if you were opening up a new center, and whether that's you're already in the process and you're kind of getting closer to the finish line. And obviously there's different ways to, we could start from scratch and go through, 150 steps, but let's make the assumption that you've already decided to open up a center, whether that's building something from the ground up or leasing a space or buying a space, whatever that may be. And let's say, again, you've kind of got some things in motion, and you've picked a curriculum, and you're evaluating some of the different tools and decor and things like that. And let's assume that you didn't do a lot of the strategic stuff. So I'd like to talk a little bit about that stuff. But if you were, I guess, consulting with or helping a center, what would some of the things, Julie, you would kind of take a look at first to make sure here are those 2 or 3 things that you want to make sure you have dialed in before you open the doors?
So to me, there's all different, and I'll always ask an owner or an up and coming owner, where they're at in the process. So it might be that, you've got your website up and going and you've got different things, in the works. But to me, the most powerful place is to have that vision. And I know I talk vision, but I really think, and I really wholeheartedly believe that if you have a vision that you're on fire about, you can totally fill your program without even having a brick and mortar building in place. But you've got to be talking to people about that vision and having conversations about the vision. But that's, one of my starting points would be to ask, what's the vision? And how many conversations have you had with people about the vision? And how excited are you about the vision? And to me, those are 3 huge things, because we could do all the technical things. You could have a website, you could be getting flyers out, you could be doing whatever. But if you don't have a vision that backs that stuff up, you're taking misaligned action. So to me, those are always the starting point to make sure our vision is in the right place and our mindset is in the right place. And then we implement the right strategy. And to me, even when you think about a flyer, like we'll often think about a marketing brochure and making sure we've got a great brochure developed. To me, if you take your story, your why, you do what you do, and you put that story and make that into your flyer, that to me is going to have more power than one of those fancy, smashy, marketing brochures that people create with all the pictures and a little bit of dialogue on it. But if you tell your story on that flyer and invite people into a conversation with you, that's a powerful starting place.
I like that a lot. And I'd like to ask one question, because this is definitely one that's come up and just came up for me today. One of the questions that I'm always asking center owners on kind of one of our first get to know you calls is, tell me a little bit more, similar to, tell me about your vision, but I usually will say, what motivated you to embark on this? Yeah. And I would say that I get split answers. And I would say that, and I'll just make up a percentage because I haven't calculated it, but like 50% are, they've got another career and this is more of an investment. So they believe that childcare is a good space to get into and kind of recession proof. So maybe they have kids, maybe they don't, but a lot of times, and usually it has a lot to do with this. I think it's a good investment.
Mm-hmm.
So then the other 50%, like the gentleman I just talked to today, he's in Pennsylvania. He's a former principal of an elementary school. And he's like, I just want to help influence young minds. Nice. And he's like, I want to be around and work with, I don't know, my camera keeps turning off. We'll get that sorted out in just a second. But he goes, I want to be around centers and like-minded people and vendors that have a similar approach to where they're, yes, we're here to make a profit and make some money, but we also want to make sure that we're making an impact. So when you're crafting that vision, if someone is coming this at from an investment standpoint, obviously, a compelling vision isn't, I'm going to switch my camera, but I'll keep talking.
Okay.
It's not a path of, I just want to make lots of money. But what would you encourage the owners that, at least initially, this has a lot to do with the investment side? Would you encourage them to look at, I guess, playing with that a little bit? Like, what would you encourage them to do?
I still encourage them to do the same thing. It's got to be the same steps where there's still this vision in place and there's still a story in place, and here's the interesting thing is that if you look at different companies who use a vision and use a story, the story can sometimes be fictitious. And I forgot the name of the company, but there's this barbecue sauce that it's not their own story, but they actually made up a whole story to connect people with the barbecue sauce brand. And I think that's fascinating to look at and to learn from, is that the story doesn't necessarily even have to be yours, but it has to be something that people can connect with, where they'll be like, oh, wow, I totally see, Uncle Jed, in that story or whatever it might be. So, people will often ask me, Julie, you preach story and vision so much. Is it really necessary to have a successful business to have a story and a vision? And I really think that it's not. I don't think that it's absolutely essential, but I do think that the one thing that vision and story does for you is that it creates an engagement unlike any others. And especially if you are in the industry and you're looking to re-engage your staff or re-engage, all of your parents, there's nothing more powerful than the story and then sharing the vision. Can we be successful without it? Yeah, absolutely. There are investor childcare programs, people who invest in childcare programs all over the place, and they're just hidden somewhere and they put their people at the forefront. So their director is in there as the lead and they don't have a story and they don't have a vision. But what they do have a lot of times is they have a lot of turnover in clients. They have a lot of turnover in staff because people aren't connected or engaged with something that is bigger than just the list of things that we offer. And that's what I see as one of the downfalls when we get into our childcare programs is like, are we just going to be another one of the, the places that people are shopping for and comparing the list? Okay, they have ProCare, they have tablets, they have, the fancy chalkboard, whatever it might be. So they compare their list with our list. Now, when you get into having a strong, compelling vision and an amazing story in place, to me, it almost eliminates all of that because people are buying into something bigger than just all of those items that you're offering.
No, that makes power. That makes complete sense. And I the other piece, I guess, that I would add a little bit would be, even if you're doing this as an investment, that there's some reason why you decided to get into this space. That there's some reason. So Amanda, she just wrote, my children and working in childcare for over 5 years is kind of what's driving me in my story. So there's usually something, and it usually just takes a little bit of some extra digging. And I go through the whole like asking why 5 times, 3 times, like, so why did you decide to get into childcare? Well, I thought it'd be a good investment. Tell me a little bit more about that. Well, back when I was a kid, I went to Montessori school and it changed. Like, there's usually something else that's there, and it's a little bit deeper below the surface. But to your point, I mean, we want to have something that people can really rally behind. And I think I've mentioned it on one of the episodes, but we're formally kind of rolling out what we call this road to 1,000 of wanting to help transform and actively work with 1,000 childcare centers across the globe. And there's financial goals behind it, and there's other things to it, but I mean, it's a lot sexier to say the road to 1,000, we want to impact 1,000 centers, than we want to do $10 million a year in revenue, just making up numbers. But it allows you to just show that there's something bigger there. And even with the home child care centers, like, you might initially say, well, it was, I mean, my husband, his hours got cut back, so we have a house and that's what we set it to do. But there's always something else that's there.
Yeah. And when you can't find that something else that's there, that's when you really got to question, like, oh, is this really the right thing? Because then there's just going to be a little thread for you to hang on to when things get really tough. So what we want to give you is a whole big ball of really thick, what do you call it? Rope. I was thinking about my mom macrameing years ago, but that big thick rope, that you have something to hang on to. And that's what a story and a vision does. And I love what you're saying, Michael, is that even if you're an investor, and you dig, you can find a connection with it. But then the biggest challenge is, well, do you want to be the one at the forefront, or are you going to be the hidden investor, the hidden owner who nobody really knows or nobody really sees? And that's a decision to make, because if you want to be behind the scenes, I think it's a whole different ballgame than putting yourself out there and being in the front and center, letting the story be yours, letting the vision be yours.
Oh, and if you're behind the scenes, I mean, you can still impact the culture and motivate your team. And you don't have to be that. There's a lot of owners that we work with that they don't even want to be in the brand, but they just love it, and they want to they're the operational people, and they love shopping for new classroom equipment and dealing with contractors to help expand the buildings and those kind of things. So, so the first step, as Julie mentioned, is making sure you've got the vision in alignment before you just continue to just do stuff. For me, I definitely agree with that. And then I would say, from my side, that next step is I've got to see a backwards plan. And this is where a lot of centers that either will engage us right before an opening or right after an opening. I don't want to say that it's too late, but it's going to be too late to hit some insane goals. So if you're like, I want to open my center with, I'll give you a perfect example. We've got a center that's opening in January. They want to open with 115 enrollments. So they want to go from, give or take, 0 to, over $100,000 a month in revenue. And I'm not saying that that's not doable, but what you need to do is you then need to back yourself into that plan of, okay, great. If you want to open with 115 enrollments, what are the steps? What are the actions? How many flyers? How many postcards? What neighborhoods are you going to be hitting up? How much money do you want to spend on paid traffic? And a lot of times, unfortunately, almost every marketing plan that I've seen, the numbers are too low. Way too low. You're massively underinvesting in your marketing. So if you take a step back and think about it, again, I'll keep using this real life example because it makes it easier to think through. They're going to have almost $2 million in their building and the equipment. So if you're going to invest $2 million in a brand new, even if you're investing $10,000 a month, whatever it is, you're hiring staff, you're buying all this equipment, you're buying software tools. and you know that these enrollments are going to be the lifeblood of your center. They're going to be what helps get you going, helps to start drive cash flow, gives you some immediate feedback of what's working as you're kind of like working the kinks out. If you're doing a great job, which I hope that you are, they're going to refer people. But if you look at like where all this money is going, often the marketing piece is an afterthought. And you just assume that if you throw up a building, you throw up a sign, you put some flyers out, you do a little bit of networking, that all of a sudden you're going to have 50 enrollments. I don't know too many businesses that can go from $0 a month to $50,000 or $100,000 a month in the first month or two. It's like it's not that easy unless you actually have that backwards plan that you're working from, that you're able to, even if you're a month out, 2 months, 6 months, take stock as to where you are, look at where you want to go. I call it the bridge. So that the childcare bridge of where you are today to where you want to get to, and then just start to backwards plan it. And you'll very quickly start to realize, are you doing enough? Are you investing enough? And you might say, well, Michael and Julie, the money's not there to invest. Well, you've got to figure something out. You've got to, whether that's a loan, whether you're taking on a 0% interest credit card, because you're going to get yourself into a tough spot of, well, you had all your money went to build the building and then buy all the equipment. But if you don't have anyone to fill it, you've got an empty building that you're like pacing around in and walking around and just not enough traction. So I know you're extremely passionate about the vision stuff, and I am as well. I huge believer. I execute that the exact same way that you do. And often I look at my vision, again, I call it a painted picture almost daily. I reread it last night, actually, because I had to remind myself of kind of where I'm headed, because sometimes we get off track.
We forget, where am I and where am I going? Right.
We work off of a plan. So if I'm saying we've got the road to 10,000, okay, great, or road to 1,000, excuse me. What do I have to do then?
Yes.
If we're trying to add 100 new childcare centers this year, for example, how many per month? Are there going to be some months are going to be lower? Do the activities match? And you just got to be honest with yourself, because I worry that a lot of centers, you kind of get that momentum, you make the decision, but then it's kind of like just everything gets in the way, and then you're dealing with inspectors and local boards and the states and all these things, and you're like, well, geez, I don't have a ton of strategies to get some families in here.
Right. Yeah, and I do agree with the backwards plan. And I think the backward plan, even works too when you're thinking about what to charge people and what kind of offerings you're going to have, is to be thinking about, well, how much is it that we do want to be bringing in sales? And then work your plan from there too, where you have a number written down. Let's say it's $50,000 a month, and you look at what your costs are, but you also look at, okay, well, what is it that we need to be bringing in sales to be covering our cost, and then using that as a benchmark for your rates also. And I know there's different ways of looking at what you're going to be charging when you're opening up your childcare program. So a lot of people are calling and looking at competitive rates and looking at like, oh, what should I be charging? What should I be paying? And I always go with the take that you should never be the lowest childcare program. You should never be the one charging the least amount of money, but you should be in the upper echelon, really. But if you're in a place where you're like, where is this money going to come from? This is where we do a lot of extensive work with our clients, because the money it's here. It's just a matter of what action are you willing to take and how uncomfortable are you willing to get to bring it in. So let's say you want to, get engaged with Michael's services, get a brilliant website up and get your Google ads going or whatever it might be. But you're like, oh, but I have no money. I mean, the easiest way for me to bring money in is to start having conversations. And I'll say it over and over and over and over again, but I want you to really think about how many conversations are you having about your vision every single week? Because if you're like, oh, well, I'm not really talking to anybody about it, well, then there's not going to be a lot of inflow coming in. But if you're generating this energy that's growing and growing and growing and expanding, before you know it, people are going to start coming up to you and saying, oh, can I grab one of your limited openings? So I really believe that you could be building that wait list, or you could be filling enrollments, even if you're not yet at the place where you can actually physically enroll somebody. So, and the part that I deal with extensively is the vision and the mindset piece, which I think shifts everything. So, really think about that. So if you're at a place where it's like, I just don't have the money yet, think about using your mouth, having conversations, getting yourself out there, and see how many people you can really rally to be a part of your vision and to invest in your childcare program. And it will definitely and can definitely happen.
I like it.
It does happen.
And I know, and it was funny that you mentioned the calling, because that's often when I'll ask, well, how did you pick your rates? Well, I called around and figured that we'd be a little bit lower than everyone, or a little bit higher, so that's a great point. That to me, everything is math. I use the word marketing math, the phrase marketing math all the time, and you've got to get that math. And I know sometimes it's a little scary, and I don't know all the numbers and things like that. But as a business owner, you've got to know this stuff, because you've got to make sure you're making the right decisions. You've got to make sure that you know where things are at. You want to know before you're opening your break evens, and when can you be hiring another teacher, and just all of that math. And it can be broken down pretty easily. Using Excel and Google Sheets and different tools like that. So make sure you've got that stuff dialed in.
Yeah, absolutely. And have fun with your numbers. Just so often we tie so much into those numbers, and we think it defines us. And you could really let it be a game and just have a lot of fun with those numbers. And if you can learn to do that, then I think it makes everything else so much easier.
So I want to talk, maybe give one more strategy on this, and then I'm going to tee you up for one of the ones that I know that you talk a lot about.
Ooh, okay.
So I'm a huge fan of, it's called the 3x3. And I'll give credit where credit is due. So it was designed by a guy named Dennis Yu, YU. And it's all about creating video for your business, for your center. And it's 9 short videos. And before you go, oh my God, 9 videos, like this is insane, and how am I going to do this? They're very, very short. So we're talking, some of these are 30 seconds, 90 seconds. These are meant to be short videos. And what I like to do when it's a new center is I like to go through this 3x3. And it's the exact strategy that we're going to help this new center that's opening up in January. We're going to go through this exact strategy. And the goal then is that we try and cast a pretty wide net initially. Now, when I say wide net, it's a wide targeted net. So we've done the data analysis, we've checked out demographics, we know the types of families that we're aiming to enroll. So there's a lot of other things that go behind it, where you don't just slap up a Facebook ad and start running it, or Google. You want to make sure that the languaging is in alignment to your vision and to the families you're looking to attract, and the strategies and the scripts that you're using on the phone and all of that stuff. But the 3x3, again, it's 9 videos. And the secret sauce to this is that as somebody watches your videos, only then do they get to progress through the steps. So the first 3 are all videos around why, and they're all around creating awareness. So this is why I decided to start the center, and that's why we talked earlier about the vision and getting clear as to why you're doing it. So they're normally the owner doing 3 videos, why you decided to get started, why you love childcare, why do you think your center's the best. So just a couple of videos for why, but they're all the way at the top, and they're really more around branding. It's creating awareness that your center is coming, but you're not giving them any action steps. It literally is, you're going to run these videos on tools like Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, anywhere that videos can be leveraged.
Yeah.
So after you've got those, once somebody's interacted, then they're going to go to the second step. And the second step is how videos or engagement. And what you're looking to do with that is you're just looking to engage them in a conversation. So maybe you're talking about, if you're a Montessori school, you're going to say, what do you know about Montessori? Do you know some of the common misconceptions about Montessori? You're just aiming for them to comment something back to kind of start a conversation. But you're, again, still not doing anything to say book a tour. You're taking them through this strategic process. So you're going to do 3 videos. in that second section for engagement. And then the final 3 videos, once they've interacted with your how videos, is you take them to the what. And those what are the conversions. So schedule a tour, do a virtual tour, pre-enroll now. That's when you can aim to move them into action. And far too often, even with the new center, the ads that you're running from day one are grand opening special, enroll now.
Right.
And that's fine if they already have context about your center. Right. If you're a brand new location, even if you're taking over another location. So Amanda's question was around, I'm purchasing another center that has a good reputation, but their enrollment is super low due to COVID. My enrollment is back at capacity. One question, Amanda, that I would ask you if you're still listening is tell me a little bit more about the proximity to the locations. But when I'm looking at that, maybe it's also a branding play of not having kind of all that brand recognition, that while the reputation might be great, maybe it just hasn't moved the needle a little bit. So you go through this video strategy and it's accomplishing just a lot of things very rapidly. It's warming up these parents, it's getting them to engage with you, and then it's moving them through to actually end up converting into something. So that's my favorite strategy to use. It's a lot easier to deploy than it sounds, because a lot of people, when they hear video, they get nervous. Like, these are videos you can be doing with your iPhone or your Android.
Yeah.
Like, and it's their $20 stand, a $20 little microphone that can plug into your iPhone, and I mean, you're rocking and rolling.
Yeah. Or you could even go right on Zoom. You know, I do that a lot of times too. I go right on Zoom, I make some videos, and then I download them, edit if I want to. I try not to edit, you know, and then get them up there. But this is a brilliant strategy, because what it does, and I hope you guys wrote this down, Michael's 3x3, but it really allows people to connect you before you just go, oh, here, and buy this. You know, so I always think about that as, we just don't want to get married. You know, we don't want to meet somebody and say, hey, let's get married and we're going to be happy forever. We want to court, we want to date, and we want to really discover if there's that connection. So I think the first 3 videos that you were talking about really allow people to connect, right? To really emotionally engage with you and say, oh, I'm so connecting. And then I think if they make it through to the next 3, they're pretty much already sold on who you are. It's just a matter of now just discovering some of the facts and the details. So I love it.
Exactly. And it just, you got to warm them up. And especially with a new location, you've got to warm them up and get them into a better spot.
Yeah. So where do you, once you have these videos done, where do you post them? Are you going on Facebook? Are you going on LinkedIn?
No, it's a great question. So these are largely done through Facebook. And you've got to put ad dollars behind this. Like, so this isn't you just throw them up on your Facebook page and you've got 6 followers. This is, you're throwing some ad dollars. You're putting them up on YouTube and spending $10, $15, $20 a day so that everyone in that geographic area. Now, I normally, again, I start a little bit wider, and that's kind of something that we could probably spend an hour just talking about, but it varies based on the center. I've seen it as low as 2 or 3 miles, like if you're in like downtown New York City, for example. And I've seen it as wide as 12 to 15 miles, depending on where you're located. And we have historically seen that someone will drive a little bit farther for Montessori versus non-Montessori. It's a little bit more specialized. But again, it varies. We're usually seeing 5 to 8 miles tends to be the sweet spot, but it definitely varies. Trying to think where the heck, I know where I was headed with that. So you're then obviously going to put that targeting in on Facebook and YouTube so that it's not just, I'm in Buffalo, I don't want to run an ad to 15, 20 miles around Buffalo and to run them to everyone. That's where you're targeting, and a lot of the data work that you can do ahead of time. You can buy lists of parents, and they're not going to give you their emails and things like that, because that is considered spam. Right. If it's business to consumer. But you can buy the data of, these are the types of families that I want to attract. And I want to know, tell me how many are in this zip code, and show me on the map where these families are located. And what you're going to start to find is that there's going to be some great neighborhoods for you to flyer. And there's going to be some great neighborhoods for you to do the direct mail and to look at some other businesses that are in that area. And the one that I wanted to tee you up on, because I know you've talked about it quite a bit, and I love the strategy. I think I'm a little bit too lazy for it, but I know that you're big on personal conversations and building one-to-one relationships. So I'd love to kind of have you kind of speak a little bit more to that, especially when it's a new center, and maybe even building some relationships with, I guess, strategic partners. So like, is there a pediatric dentist that's 3 miles away that you want to try and establish some relationship with?
Yeah. And when you think about who you're going to establish relationships with, make sure it's the right people, because we have a lot of childcare programs who will say, yes, I dropped all my brochures off at, a doctor's office. Well, how engaged with the community is that doctor? And how much are they going out there and talking about themselves, let alone anybody else? Because dropping brochures off at an office typically don't avail a lot of results. But if it's somebody who is engaged with you and promoting you, and they're like-minded with you, and they know a lot of people in the community, and they're going to have conversations, and it's like, yeah, okay, those are the people who I want to get to know. So I would really think about your community. And we used to do these community profiles when we had people sign up for our mentorship, where we would just be looking at the community and saying, okay, who are the people who you really want to build relationships with? And one of the people who I would say is definitely somebody to build a relationship with is like the editor of the newspaper, or the people who write the press releases or the news stories that go into your newspaper. So I would go grab a newspaper or look up the newspaper online, whichever way your community, does it. Most of us still have physical newspapers, but look up the people's names on LinkedIn. Start there and connect with those people on LinkedIn. And then you could introduce yourself and just say, hey, I would love to get to know you. Or you could even send that person a gift. And I've had editors, where I think I won some kind of Chicago Sharpest Entrepreneur Award. And I really wanted to get in the paper. James Malinchuk was out there, and all these people. I was like, oh, cool. How do I get this in the local paper? So I've got that piece of paper. And I just started making friends with some of the editors. I sent the editors brownies, so that we could get the publication or the press release published. And it worked, and we did. It wasn't necessarily in the biggest paper that I wanted to get it in, but it's the relationships that are going to make those things easy. And I think people value when you value having relationships with them, because people aren't so used to it in this day and age. It's really a little bit old school, which is the way that I like to operate. But there's so many different ways that you could go about building relationships that make it fun and make it easy. But really think about who would be 10 people in your community that would be incredibly worthwhile to have a relationship with.
No, that's a great point. And I think a lot of people go to the obvious of like, oh, let's get the Chamber of Commerce, and that's fine. But who else? Like, I mean, who, as Julie said, I mean, who are some of the local influencers? Who are the people that you'd love to see?
Gossip.
Yeah.
Those are the people that you want.
One of the, so when I used to work with Jay Levinson, and one of the stories that he would tell, and a lot of his stories were, it's not called a fairy tale. What's the name of like a story that you tell that's made up, but it's like a fable?
Fiction.
There's some like phrase for it that he like tells a lot of stories more for like just teaching. So one of the stories that he always tell was that it was a new restaurant that was opening up around the corner, and they did some advertising, but they weren't really getting a lot of traction initially. And then what they did was they sent their team into a couple of the local hair salons and started giving away free gift certificates and different things like that. And then the rest is history, because I mean, hairstylists, at least a couple of months ago, would allow you to sit in their chair for a while and gossip and talk. So there definitely are those people, and I encourage you to look not only offline, but look online.
Yeah.
One of the things that we've been encouraging new centers to do, and you've got to do this strategically, you have to do it the right way, is who owns the local mom groups on Facebook and the different groups on Reddit, for example. And you've got to start, you join the group initially, and you just start watching and seeing what people are writing. And then after you've given some value, then you can start to potentially talk a little bit more about yourself. But what I always do is I reach out to the owner of these local mom groups or dad groups, and just look and see, hey, is there an opportunity for me to either do a quick little Facebook Live to your group, and I'll be more than happy to send you $100 or a gift certificate to whatever restaurant. You do it casually. You don't say like, hey, I know you're in the mom group. I'm opening up a new center. Can I promote? You build that rapport, as Julie said, and build a relationship. But my wife is on the Buffalo Mom group minimum 3 to 5 times a day. Like literally that becomes a lot of your network of what is everyone. I mean, and some of the things I would label minuscule or dumb, like where's everyone finding an umbrella stand? Because like umbrella stands are sold out everywhere, which I guess they are. Like, but she's like going to this group, and then like there's 100 replies in like 10 minutes. And I mean, those groups could really, really move you along. So
yeah, and I agree. And so one of the strategies that we teach a lot is to work with your community groups, your community Facebook groups. So not even just your mom groups or, the parents of, but in these community groups, people are always saying, and I'll take pictures when I find them and I post it in our childcare business success group on Facebook. I'm like, all right, who's really tuning in and plugging into these conversations and ready to respond? Because in our community groups, we often have people saying, hey, I'm looking for an after school program. Who do you guys recommend? And if there's nobody in there participating in the conversation from childcare, it's really a missed opportunity to put your 2 cents in to say, hey, we offer it, or hey, I'm a local childcare program. I don't offer before and after school, but here's somebody who does. So it really allows you to build relationships with your community. And there's so many different strategies that you can implement. We'll have to do a whole show just on groups because
no, I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, because there's a lot of different strategies that you can implement just even in your community groups. But if you're looking for very specific and niche groups, like Michael's saying with your mom group or your mom of toddlers group or whatever, there's also meetup.com. So you could go to meetup.com and also do a search in your community for the different groups that are happening, the moms groups, the different meetups that may involve mothers or fathers of the age group in which you want to attract clients. And you might even be able to start your own meetup group too, at least for a period of time, to really wrap your arms around a community of moms or dads or grandparents or whoever it might be.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
So I think what I would love to do is, I know we had a lot of fun last week, and I would love maybe each of us to kind of share for a couple of minutes we kind of were talking about movies and lessons, and I wanted to kind of pivot a little bit, and I think we'll continue next week with some more strategies on opening, because there's a lot more that I know we could share. But obviously we try and cram as much in an hour as we can. Amanda, so I'll post some response back to your question. I'll probably do a little Loom video for you, and I'll have Julie kind of chime in as well. So I want to make sure that we get to your question as well. So do you have, and I'm happy to start if you'd like, but do you have another? I know we talked about a couple of movies last week, and you got me thinking when you said, hey, Michael, let's talk about movies and some life lessons and how could they apply to the lives of these childcare center leaders.
Yes. Yeah. And we both said that, yeah, we love movies. So it's really interesting that both of us are always taking lessons from different movies. And there's old movies and there's new movies. And I think I'll let you go ahead and kick off this one.
So I'll share kind of an oldie but a goodie. It was one of my favorite movies as a kid. And we just watched it a couple of days ago. So that's why it's top of mind, is The Lion King.
Ooh, okay.
And when I kind of think through the movie there's a lot of different lessons, but I think there were 2 that really kind of stuck out for me. So the first one, and I need to make sure that I'm living this every single day, but it's that phrase Hakuna Matata, and it's just all about not worrying. And I have a tough time with worrying, and I mentioned last week. I actually have it at my house, but when I was on our show live, I bought the gratitude book, and it came in, and I've been doing that ever since, and in the morning. So per Julie's recommendation of the book, and that was a good way to kind of start the mornings. But yeah, exactly, and it was cheap. It was like $8 or something.
Right. For your whole team.
No, that's an even better idea, actually, to buy them for each of the team. That's a great idea. I didn't think of that. But I realized that a lot of the times I start my day worrying. worrying about what fires we're going to have during the day and worrying about this issue and that issue. And it just, worrying isn't constructive. So that was kind of one of the messages. But the other one is really just about when they were kind of going through the movie, and Simba kind of wanted to try and overcome his fears, but it really is just all about facing your fears head on. And there is, I mean, again, and I hate to keep just referring to everything that's going on, but I mean, if that's where things are, I can't sugarcoat the fact that we're all having some challenges, and that it's just no one in the world would have forecasted this. But
Right.
you got to face your fears and know that if you have, if I go back to earlier in this conversation of having that compelling vision, that will drive you and get you through these tough times. And I know that I'm oversimplifying of obviously the actions that you need to take and things like that, but it's this whole piece that I don't want you to get paralyzed by fear. And it's just making sure that you can see the light at the end of the tunnel by practicing gratitude, by reminding yourself every day of your vision, because that will continue to allow you to push forward. So those are the couple and there's a lot of other lessons from that movie, and just was one of my favorite movies. I mean, not dwelling on the past, and I mean, there's just a lot of really good timeless messages in that movie.
Now I have to go back and watch it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's definitely a good one. And I agree. There's so many lessons in that one, and overcoming your fears. You know, somebody once said on like a coaching call a couple of days ago, we were talking about making fear your best friend, because the more successful you are, the more fears and challenges are going to pop up. So if you can really learn to embrace it and say, you know, fear is my buddy here, and really there's nothing to fear about fear except to walk through it and to get to the other side, then you're going to be in a much better mental space about it.
Exactly.
Yeah. So the movie, as you were talking, I was debating a couple in my head, but the one I think I'm going to talk about is Scrooge. And whether it's the old Scrooge or the new Scrooge, I think the lessons are still the same. And I did a video, gosh, I don't know, within the past year, that was called, and it's on my business page where we're broadcasting this, or one of the places where we're broadcasting this. And it was Motivate Like Poppins, Transform Like Scrooge. And I did an in-depth analysis of those two movies where I talked about Mary Poppins and I talked about Scrooge. And the thing that was so interesting to me, and I teach a lot of workplace transformation. So I teach you how to transform your business, how to transform your employees, how to transform yourself and your own mindset. And the thing that was most powerful to me about Scrooge is the transformation that he made, and how receptive after he made the transformation that people were to him. So it's almost like they were forgetting that the old Scrooge even existed, and now they were just embracing this new energy. And I'm sure that everybody's familiar with the story of Scrooge. Grumpy old man, doesn't even want to give his employees off for Christmas, and he wants to work everybody to the bone because it's all about the buck. And then he has a realization when he gets visited by his three ghosts?
Yeah.
Three ghosts through the night, where he looks at his life very differently. Going back in time, was it past, present, and future, and just really looking at how things could have been different if he had taken different action, and how they could be different in the future. And when he awoke from the dream where he was with his three ghosts, he was transformed, to me, by a spirit of what you were talking about, Michael, which is gratitude, where he really gave appreciation for his life and the people in it. And then all of a sudden, because of that gratitude, it was the thing that transformed him. He changed to where he was giving a lot of money away. He was buying turkeys. He was doing all these different things. And people were so receptive of the change, because often we think that people are going to rule us out. If we were one way yesterday, that they're going to just say, oh no, we can't do business with that person, or we can't be with that person. But I want you to know that when you're ready for change, people will embrace it, and they'll even be really excited about it. But the thing that's going to impact it the most is your own enthusiasm about what lays ahead for you in the future. And to me, that's a big lesson, because you've got to right now right now, especially right now, have a ton of enthusiasm for where you're going in your life. And if you don't, nobody else will. And to me, that's an incredibly powerful lesson. I remember Scrooge waving out the window, throwing the money down for somebody to go get him a turkey. And he was just so excited. I mean, right now, it is your time to be that excited when it comes to opening your doors, whether you're brand spanking new or whether you're reopening your center. But how can you pour more and more and more enthusiasm into what you're doing? Because that enthusiasm is going to make all the difference in terms of how many people are on board and excited about your vision and the program that you created.
Love it.
So that's my analogy.
No, I love it. So I'd love to do 2 more quick things before we let everyone roll for the afternoon. So we'll do a couple of quick housekeeping first, but I wanted to give a book recommendation and then have Julie end with a quote, but a few just housekeeping pieces. Again, we are here every Wednesday at 2 o'clock Eastern, 1 o'clock Central. So please make sure you're tuning in, like, share, comment, all of that good stuff. We appreciate all the people that tuned in live and left some comments and questions and things like that. So greatly appreciate all of you. You can visit my business website at Local Childcare Marketing. You can always ping me on Facebook. And you can visit Julie's site at childcarebusinesssuccess.com. And she's on Facebook, always doing lots of fun Facebook Lives and things like that as well. So if we can be of any help, any service, we are here and happy to help. This is all that both of us do all day, every day. We only work with childcare centers all day, every day, and have been for many, many years.
Yes, absolutely.
So I wanted to share a book that I reread. I haven't read it in about 8 years, but I reread a book by Gay Hendricks called The Big Leap.
Oh, nice.
Conquer Your Hidden Fear and Take Your Life to the Next Level. So this book was written, give or take, about 10 years ago, sold, I believe, about 150, 200,000 copies. So it's definitely been a well-read book. But I think that that's the word that I've been hearing a lot the last couple of weeks is a lot of fear and uncertainty. And you've got this. You can make this stuff happen. And I want you to kind of continue to charge forward. So for me, a lot of kind of reading and kind of rewiring my brain at the same time has always been helpful. So I wanted to share that book recommendation.
Love it. Love it. Good resource.
So if you want to give us a quote that we can kind of end, and we hope that you all have a wonderful rest of your day. Again, thank you so much for tuning in, and I want to give you a positive quote or a life quote to leave your day with.
Yeah. And make sure if you're tuning in and you like what we're doing, like us, love us, we appreciate it. We consider it like a virtual hug. So
love it.
Yeah. So the quote that I'm going to share, I just had it up here. It's from Barbara Cochran from the Shark Tank?
Yeah.
I've been saving these quotes and putting them on my phone. So this is one. And this is about leadership. And it says that a good leader has only 2 jobs. The first is to set the direction of the company. The next, to help everyone, and this is really important, the next is to help everyone believe enough in themselves to get there.
Love it. Get out there, make it happen, believe in yourself, overcome your fears, stay focused on that vision, and you will do wonderful things.
Yeah.
So as always, thank you so much for tuning in. I know Julie and I love doing this each week, and we will connect with you next week, and have a great rest of your week. And again, if we can help you in any way, please feel free to reach out.
Absolutely. Bye, everyone.
See you guys. See ya.